So let's take up with just an illustration to help you see how that some people can make good observations and still come to the wrong conclusions. Maybe you heard the story about the scientists who were going to see how far the frog could jump. They put this big old frog down, and they said, "Jump, frog!" That big old bullfrog jumped 80 inches. They brought the frog back to the starting line and cut off one leg. Said, "Jump, frog!" He only jumped 70 inches. They brought him back, cut off another leg. Said, "Jump, frog!" He only jumped 60 inches. They brought him back, cut off another leg. Said, "Jump, frog!" He only jumped 50 inches. They brought him back, cut off his last leg, and said, "Jump, frog!" You know, they expected he'd go about 40 inches. He actually jumped 0. The frog didn't move. They were amazed. They tried the experiment again. New frog. Got the same results. They yelled and screamed and coaxed and said, "Come on, jump, frog, jump!" Frog didn't move. So these brilliant scientists looked at their graph and they were just confused. How could this happen? So they concluded the frog jumped less as the legs were removed. Now that's a good observation. That's true. Then they said, see, what we proved is that a frog with no legs goes deaf. No, bad conclusion. Okay. Good observation, bad conclusion. And many people are guilty of this. They make good observations and come to the wrong conclusion. For instance, they did their experiment with the fruit flies. They got these poor flies and they nuked them and microwaved them and x-rayed them and radiated them and everything else. And they got mutated babies, of course. Some of the flies were born with curled wings. They fly around, bzz, 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 couldn't go anywhere. They got flies with no wings. What do you call that? A crawl? You can't fly. So they raised all these flies in the laboratory and got all sorts of mutated flies, but they still got a fly. And here, just recently in the newspaper, they said, Darwin is as fit as ever. Here we see evolution in action. Right here, 2 flies. This is the proof for evolution. One fly has wings that are a little bit bigger than the other fly. Is that proof for evolution? Wait a minute. It's still a fly. You might have a fly getting better nutrition and able to grow bigger, or, you know, he's in an area where the larger wingspan is necessary for some reason. Maybe he's in higher altitude and he needs, you know, bigger wings because the air is thinner. I don't know. But it's still a fly. That's an example of variation within the kind. That would be an example of microevolution. But some poor student's going to read this and think, wow, they have proof for evolution. I saw it in the paper. No, they have proof for variations after their kind. The scientists concluded that all the mutations observed with the fruit flies produced flies that were inferior to the original fly. That's a good observation. And then they said, you know, this proves that flies have evolved as far as they can go. No, that's a bad conclusion. Jump, frog, jump. Yes, all the mutants you got were inferior to the original grandpa fly. Maybe that proves that God made the flies right to begin with. It doesn't prove they've evolved as far as they can go. They were already fine before you started messing with them. That's what it proves. Then they did the thing with the peppered moth. Now this was hilarious. They counted the moths on the trees. So the story goes. It must have been a government project, go around counting the moths on the trees. They discovered it was 95% light-colored moths and 5% black. Now these are 2 colors of the exact same species of moth. Biston betulia, whatever it is. Biston betularia. I didn't take Latin, I took French. It took me further than I took it. But there's 2 colors of the same kind of moth. Most of them were light-colored because the trees were light-colored and they blended in. The birds are more likely to see a dark moth on a light tree, so they would be easier to find to eat. That's how the story goes. Then, when they began burning coal in the factories in England back in the Industrial Revolution, they got all this coal coming out, turning the trees black around the factories. So they counted the moths again around the factories and found out it was 95% black moths and 5% light. And they said, see, evolution. The white moth evolved into a black moth. No, that's not what happened at all. Now, it turns out the whole story is a fake. It didn't happen at all. But even if it were true, the ratio of the population shifted. The moth didn't change. It started off as a moth. It ended up as a moth. Yep, that proves we all came from a rock, all right. I mean, what more evidence could you possibly need? I don't see how. They don't see how dumb that is. Turns out, after 40 years of watching the trees, 2 moths were found on the tree trunks. In 40 years. So what the guy did to take the picture to go in your textbook, he glued dead moths to the trees and took the picture as proof for evolution. They were dead and glued on the tree. Then he took a dead bird and stuffed it and glued it on the tree like it's about to eat the colored moth that he wanted it to eat. The whole thing was staged. It was fake. Didn't happen. But even if it would have happened, what would they have proven? Well, let's see. The moth population ratio shifted from mostly white to mostly black. Okay? That would have been true. Moth population was able to adapt to the new environment. Okay, that would have been a good observation also. This helps prove we all came from a rock. Oh, no. Now, there's a bad conclusion. Okay? Jump, frog, jump. What you would have concluded is that God made the moth with the ability to produce a variety of babies. Some dark, some light, so some of them are going to survive no matter what happens to the background. That's proof for creation. Then they tell the students to get a large sheet of black paper, 1 meter square. I like to kick this dog every time I walk by. All the new textbooks that I'm aware of are metric. I understand the metric system very thoroughly. I taught physics. I'll take a metric quiz against anybody you know. But I'm not sure I want a kid coming to help build my house that doesn't know what a 2x4 is. Okay, so if you're a patriot, make your paper 39.37 inches instead. And then it says get 200 white circles and 200 black circles and cut them out and throw them on the paper. And then they say, okay, boys and girls, we're going to see how many you can pick up in 1 minute. Go. Well, of course, you're going to pick up the white circles off the black paper. You don't need to be a genius to figure this out. And they're going to say, see, this proves evolution. No, teacher, this proves we got extra money to waste in our school district. We just cut up a whole bunch of good paper and threw it on the floor. Now we got to pay the janitor to pick up the ones we couldn't find. That's not proof for evolution. It's proof the Creator was pretty smart. He put this ability in these moths to produce a variety of colors of babies, so some will always survive. The peppered moth is actually excellent proof of design. See, God wants to make sure some survive no matter what happens. And yet they give the kids the idea that this is evidence for evolution. Actually, it's called planning ahead. Did you know General Motors and Ford and I believe Toyota puts a heater and an air conditioner in some of their cars? Oh, wait a minute. Doesn't a heater and an air conditioner do the opposite thing? One heats it up, one cools it down. Why would you put both in the same car? Well, because they don't know if it's going to go to hot climate or cold climate, right? It's planning ahead for General Motors to put both of them in the car. And it's planning ahead for God to put both genes in the moth population. So if it lands in an area where dark survives better, okay, then the dark ones survive. If it lands in an area where light ones survive, then the light ones survive. That's not evolution. That's planning ahead.